welcome to the third and final section of our event today. In the morning, we looked at how to enable female-led nano and micro businesses thrive in Africa. Followed by that, we had the session on sustaining the fiscal and tax environment for MSMEs in Nigeria. And finally, we are on the youth dialogue session. And this session is supported by the Anzisha Prize. And my name is Oyebola Agunloye. I lead research programs at the Faith Institute. The Faith Institute is Faith Foundations. The Faith Institute spearheads Faith Foundations research, policy, and advocacy efforts. And I'll be your host for this session. Next on our agenda, we are supposed to have a welcome remark from our ED. I'll be inviting to the stage Ms. Adenike Adeyemi, Executive Director of Faith Foundation, to give us the opening remark. A round of applause, please.
Thank you very much, Oyebola. My apologies, I was walking out one of our special guests from the earlier session. How many of us have been here since morning? Fantastic. Please give yourself a round of applause. I really would want to say thank you because sometimes it can be a lot, but you've stayed with us, and I am assuming that you saw value in the sessions that we've had from today, from the morning till now. On behalf of the board of Faith Foundation and particularly the Faith Institute division that is hosting our 9th Policy Dialogue series, I am delighted to welcome you to the session that we're having today, the last one of our Policy Dialogue series focused on young people. I mentioned this in the earlier introduction I done at the first session, that young people are the ones that lead most small and growing businesses in Nigeria. Young people that were aspiring and or are leading ventures of different sizes. Most of the people we support at Faith Foundation, particularly coming into Faith, are people between the ages of 18 to 35. I remember when I joined Faith Foundation and I was asking, in fact, when I was interviewing for the process and I was asking Mr. Adiola, the founder of Faith Foundation, what was the idea behind founding the organization? And one of the things he said was that for him, having founded a bank at 33 years at the time, and then going to the Nigerian Institute for Policy Studies in Kuru Jos to think through how do you solve the issues of unemployment and underemployment in Nigeria. And he came back, and this is 24, 25 years ago, before entrepreneurship was a thing. And he came back to say that it was important to set up a platform that gave young people a path to creating jobs for themselves first and then creating jobs for others. And that really is on the path that we've gone on over the last 23 years, supporting and working with young Nigerian entrepreneurs in over 31 states who are ideating and who have also built businesses across all the sectors of the economy. A lot of our young people are now also older people themselves. They are post 35 years. Imagine somebody being 35, 23 years ago, and they're now mentors, they are now facilitators, they're now volunteers, they support other young people in the pipeline. But the other thing that's always an exciting fact for me is that young people are the ones that are more likely to employ other young people. So 70% of the jobs that are created by young people, particularly in the MSME space. And so this was a conversation that we wanted to give special attention to and focus at this policy dialogue. So I want to just say thank you very much to all our special guests. I would like to acknowledge our special guest speaker who was walking in just as I started, in the person of the Honorable Commissioner for Youth and Social Development in Lagos State, Mr. Mobolaji Ogunlende. You're welcome, sir. Thank you very much for honoring us with your presence, and we look forward to your keynote speech. I also would like to acknowledge our partners, the Anzisha Fellows, who have worked with us in curating the program. The Anzisha Fellowship is very intentional about supporting very young entrepreneurs. In fact, they start, I believe, at 15 because they recognize that entrepreneurs start earlier, and that whether because they are looking to support their families or they're also innovative and also find ideas in themselves to be able to set up their businesses to do that. And that's one of the things that, we've seen. Up until probably about 6 years ago, a lot of the programs we did, 99% of our programs will start with people who had finished their tertiary education. And then we looked back and we were asking a lot of our entrepreneurs, particularly in our Aspiring Entrepreneurs program, when did you start your business? And they'll say, no, when I was in second year or when I was finishing secondary school. Why did you start your business? Because I know that I'm a first generation educated person, for instance, and my parents would not be able to afford, or I needed to just sustain myself, or I was in the university campus or in the college of education and I saw that people needed to make stews and I said I could do that. And we then said, oh, there was something wrong with what we were doing. We needed to start earlier because businesses were starting earlier. And we're now saying that they're even starting much, much earlier than, a lot of us at the time will be doing. There's such a passion for entrepreneurship across a lot of our young persons. And for us, we're intentional about the conversations that enable them to fulfill the best of themselves while they choose to continue to stay on the path of entrepreneurship. So thank you very much to Mr. Nkrumah Mwancho, who is from the Aspen Venture Partner at the African Leadership Academy. Yes, you're welcome. Thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you very much to our other special guests who are on the panel. One of them is a very good friend, Mr. Michael Ajayi of Enactus Nigeria. Enactus used to be SIFE, Students in Free Enterprise. Who remembers that or were part of that university? So again, just talking about accelerating entrepreneurship at a very, very young age. And some of the really exciting innovations I've seen have been even just watching some of the pitches from Enactus entrepreneurs. Thank you very much, Mr. Godwin Tom. Thank you so much. It's good to have you here. Mr. Kenneth Z. AKZA. Okay. And one of us, Miss Olajumoke Adiola, who will be moderating the panel, and Miss Esther Olalude. Yes, you're welcome. And you came from Jos. Yes, you're welcome all the way from Plateau State. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, and I hand over back to Ebola. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adeneke. A round of applause as she goes up the stage. So as I mentioned earlier on, this youth dialogue session is supported by the Anzisha Prize. And so to give his opening remark, I'll be inviting to the stage Mr. Nkrumah Mwancho, Anzisha's venture partner, Africa Leadership Academy, South Africa. And he'll be giving opening remarks on the case for very young entrepreneurs. So please, let's welcome him to the stage. Let's keep clapping as he comes up to stage. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Am I clear? So my name is Nkrumah Mwancho. I am Kenyan by birth, but I have a West African name. My DNA is here as well. I am here to represent Anzisha Prize and the African Leadership Academy to talk to you a little bit about the very young entrepreneur. Is that okay? I know some of you have children probably that age, 15 to 22, or grandchildren. I myself am in that space. I do have 2 children who are in their 20s. And yes, it is true. It is not a lie. And one of them is actually in that space. She's an entrepreneur herself. So I'm just going to read a little bit of something that I wrote to express the importance of the very young entrepreneur and why they are a critical expression of ourselves, not just for today, but for the times to come. I'm lucky enough to have one of our fellows here with us, Esther, and she's going to share with you a story, her story of the journey into entrepreneurship. So, as I stand here before you, I want to talk to you about the potential to transform the African narrative, an idea that can unleash and untap potential of this continent, an idea that has been championed by the likes of Peter Bamakole, who's one of your own from the Pan-African University. The very young entrepreneur scenario is a concept, if well implemented, can be a vehicle to radically change the trajectory of our continent, and I'm here to share the vision. So at the Anzisha Prize, we deal with entrepreneurs, or we work with entrepreneurs between the ages of 15 to 22. In fact, my trip here was to see these entrepreneurs. So I went and I visited Esther in Jos. And yesterday, I had a group of them together, one of them who's 17 years old. And at 17, she has this passion. And when I sat down with her and her mom and her sister, they were able to share with me why she's the way she is. And what I discovered is that her parents, her grandparents, and her great-grandparents were entrepreneurs. So that DNA was passed down, and she was able to capture that essence of what it means to hustle, what it means to solve a problem for another individual. And by bridging that gap, she's solving a problem for someone. It may be as simple as a necklace, a bangle, something that may seem obscure, but to her, that is a creative expression, and those people that she markets to are the ones that purchase the product. She's got an online platform and all that. And I would encourage all of you to write this down, anzishaprize.org, and we've got a slew of all the entrepreneurs that we've dealt with, what they've been able to accomplish, and how they're able to accomplish that. So the very young entrepreneur scenario proposes three possible futures. Scenario one, we're saying that let the status quo remain. Let everything remain as is. That the current trajectory will gradually improve, but without significant impact towards youth unemployment. That's where we are right now. That's what we envision, and that's what we've seen, is that if we keep everything as is, do you think we'll have an impact on youth unemployment? Is that possible? We say no. Scenario two, let's leverage on entrepreneurial experience, which focuses on older individuals with entrepreneurial experience. Maybe this scenario can be a positive impact, but I could tell you it's limited by the risk adverse of the older generation. Many of them will tell you every time they go to present, to pitch, they'll come back and say, the first thing they say is, how old are you? That's what the client will say, whether it's a service they're providing or it's a product they're offering. First question is, how old are you? There's an undermining approach that we as adults have done and created the sense that they do not know what they're doing. And I can tell you that is a lie. From the 2,500 entrepreneurs that we're dealing with, I could say they are dedicated, they are devoted, they have a vision, and they're going to accomplish this task that is before them. So the third scenario is where we lie. The very young entrepreneur scenario, which focuses on nurturing young entrepreneurs. It may require a longer time horizon, but it ultimately will yield more substantial benefit. Young entrepreneurs, despite their lack of experience, have more opportunities to impact employment over time. So, where does that leave us? There are three key stakeholders that I want to talk about today. The young entrepreneur with the leadership potential, the parent and the educator, and the third one is the investor and the policymaker. What we have seen is that if these five people come together, then we can create an environment for this very young entrepreneur. You can imagine a parent who decides to encourage their child not to go to university and pursue their dream of entrepreneurship. How many of you will say yes? Yeah, I don't see hands here. Well, I broke that mold. I said yes. My daughter sat me down, showed me a business plan, and she said, this is how I'm going to execute it over a 3-year period, and if I do not make it, I'll go to university. I said, go ahead, my child. Let's see what you will do. And right now, she's on her way, and very soon, you'll all receive a link to purchase something. For the educator, this means that the curriculum, assessment changes, and that foster entrepreneurship skills will have to be implemented. Mentors must provide accountability, information, and support. The government, whom were here, and I see all of them have left. I was just about to yell at them, but that's okay. they'll probably will hear me, the government should be able to foster and create policies that allow the young entrepreneur not to be stifled in order for them to do their business, but to be encouraged by the policies that are there, right? For instance, I would say no taxes for anybody below the age of 22, but I'll be murdered. The urgency of implementing the very young entrepreneur cannot be overstated. We have a generation of young, talented, and innovative minds ready to take the challenge of our time. If we do not harness their potential and provide them with the support they need, we risk squandering a precious resource. Working with young entrepreneurs has affirmed the importance of creating an ecosystem where entrepreneurship is not a last resort, but a viable career choice. This is when Africa will witness a new dawn, where the very young entrepreneur becomes the driving force behind our continent's transformation. In conclusion, the very young entrepreneur scenario is not just an idea. It is a call to action. It is a vision for a brighter future, a future where young entrepreneurs are not just job seekers, but job creators, where innovation and entrepreneurship leads the way. The time to invest in our young entrepreneurs is now. And together, we can change the African narrative. Will you join me? I'm not hearing a resounding one. Will you join me in supporting young entrepreneurs shape the way the African continent will be? Thank you. Asante sana.
Thank you very much. Another round of applause, please. As we've all heard, it's actually very critical to empower the environment for that youth entrepreneurs play in. For job creation, for wealth creation, and like he mentioned, for a brighter future. And thank you very much, Mr. Nkrumah, for sharing all you do for what you and your business does for young businesses. Next on the agenda, would be to set context for the conversations that we'll be having later on in this session, and I'll be sharing insights with you all from our State of Entrepreneurship report, and I'll be focusing mainly on the youth session of the report. So I don't know if we can have that on the screen. Okay. So I'll just quickly do that because we are a bit, yeah. So earlier on, Amaka had already shared, giving more context to some of the insights from our report. She focused really on the key data that the report contains, and if you have not downloaded the reports now, I would implore you all to please download that report now. She shared insights around female-led businesses. She also touched around youth-led businesses and gave also some insights on what the entrepreneurial index is saying for this year. But today I'll be focusing on mainly the youth session, and I'll just quickly run through some of the data that we have in the report. The report has a lot of data, so I can't really do justice to all of it. So really, to get the full gist from the report, I would really implore you to download the report. Very quickly, so the data that we covered, like it was mentioned earlier on in the second session we had today, we covered 10,377 businesses across 36 states in Nigeria and the FCT. And we measured entrepreneurial development across 5 key indicators of entrepreneurship, which are business performance, innovation and technology adoption, skill acquisition, enabling business environment, and perception of opportunities. And we also shared insights on female-led businesses and their performance. And now I'll be talking around the performance of youth-led businesses. So in terms of business growth, when we measured entrepreneurship development, we realized that we saw that 64% of youth-led businesses in Nigeria recorded growth in their business. This was actually a decline when you compare it with last year's figure. For last year, we had, in terms of entrepreneurs, youth entrepreneurs that experience growth. And by youth entrepreneurs, we mean businesses, youth businesses that are, the entrepreneurs are within the age of 15 and 29. So in terms of growth, for this year, we saw that 64% of these businesses responded that they recorded growth in their businesses. Last year, what we had was 74.2%. And when we looked at the decline across all the data that we had in the report, female-led businesses, male-led businesses, and generally, the youth-led businesses recorded the highest decline when it came to business growth. And when we asked around the growth areas or where they experienced growth in their businesses, the major growth area for these youth businesses was increase in profits, which was followed by improved cash flows and also improved operational performance and productivity. Also, we also tracked, when we tracked revenue growth, only 40% of youth-led businesses that grew recorded revenue growth that was above 10% in the last 1 year. Moving forward, we also measured business growth for youth-led businesses across all the states in Nigeria. And when we checked that, we realized, or we saw that Anambra, Kogi, Edo, and Bayelsa and Plateau had the highest share of youth-led businesses that experienced growth within the last 1 year. And the growth they experienced was over 90%. And for the states that didn't, well, I don't want to call them the bottom states, but the states that didn't really experience, that their youth-led businesses didn't experience any growth, Taraba, Enugu, and Zamfara had the least share of that. Moving forward, when we also looked at the business growth drivers for youth-led businesses, we realized that their ability to access new markets and opportunity made a huge impact in the growth of their business. It was also followed by the increase in demand for their product and services, and also we saw that technology adoption was also a major growth driver for the youth-led businesses. Also, for businesses that didn't experience growth, the main issue that they cited was the lack of finance. And lack of finance has actually featured in the past 3 reports that we have released at the Faith Institute, and it's been a recurring issue or a recurring challenge that entrepreneurs, youth-led entrepreneurs, in fact, entrepreneurs generally, but since we're focusing on youth-led businesses have said impacts the growth of their business. And this access to finance challenge actually made us want to even delve further into the issues around accessing finance for businesses in Nigeria. That's why last year we released a report that looked at bridging the access to finance gap for entrepreneurs in Nigeria. And so if you don't have that report also, please kindly download it from our website on www.faithfoundation.org/research. So focusing on focusing on business growth and businesses that didn't experience any growth, lack of finance constituted the major bane for youth-led businesses that didn't experience any growth, followed by poor access to markets and also poor financial management. So also moving forward, in terms of businesses that were able to access finance, since we are speaking on access to finance now, only 21.5% of youth-led businesses could access financing for their business in the last 1 year. And this is actually lower than other age groups because we are focusing on youth-led businesses, which, like I said, is between the ages of 15 and 29. And like I mentioned, so youth-led businesses lagged behind when it came to accessing finances for their businesses. And I'm sure if I ask 1 or 2 entrepreneurs here what some of the challenges that they face when it comes to accessing finance, I'm sure we would have a lot of issues to talk about. No, we don't have time, so we'll move forward. So when we measured youth-led businesses' ability to access finance across all the 36 states, Kaduna, Kano, Borno, Kogi, and Benue came up top as the states that had the youth-led businesses that were able to access finance the most, whilst the bottom states were Sokoto, Bauchi, Taraba, Kebbi, and Zamfara. when we checked or when we asked entrepreneurs some of the challenges that was associated with them accessing or raising finance for their business, the main issue that they highlighted was high interest rates. And the high interest rate environment continues to deter young businesses from being able to access finance. Some of them don't even want to have the thought of accessing finance, because by the time they go to some of these funding organizations or the interest rate is really, really high for them. Another challenge that they experienced was financial records and documentation for their businesses. So that impacted their ability to access finance also from financial institutions. Then another issue was the lack of collateral, adequate collateral. Now I want to focus on job creation by youth-led businesses. And when we looked at the jobs that youth-led businesses within the age of 15 and 29 were able to create, 23.7 of youth-led businesses employed new staff in the last 1 year. But when we measure this figure with what we had last year, it was a decline, because last year we had 29.5%. And we can cite some of the issues, some of the economic issues that we're facing, in terms of, the harsh business environments. A lot of businesses have been forced to, let go of some of their staff. Some of them are not able to keep their business afloat. We've heard entrepreneurs talk about how, at the beginning of the year, they had maybe like 30 employees. Now they have maybe like 10. Some of them have to downsize. So it has some of the harsh conditions that's from operating business in Nigeria has affected businesses from actually employing new personnel. We also looked at technology adoption for youth-led businesses. I'm trying to go as fast as I can. So we looked at technology adoption for youth-led businesses, and 72.2% of youth-led businesses who adopted technology for their businesses noted that it played a major role in boosting the growth of their business, and it also helped them to enhance productivity for their business. And when we looked at some of the areas in which youth-led businesses adopt technology for their business, the one that came up top was in the area of social media and digital marketing. So we had a lot of businesses, adopt technology around this area, and you can see it a lot, from social media. We have a lot of businesses. Oh, sorry, I didn't know it could be loud like that. Okay, so we have a lot of businesses on Instagram. We have a lot of businesses on Facebook advertising their products and services. We have a lot of, engagements that they have, and it helps to, increase followers. It helps to increase customers for the businesses. So when we looked at that the areas of technology adopted, social media and digital marketing came up top, followed by human resource management and inventory management. And the impact of technology adoption for their businesses was very huge, because according to them, it increased the number of new customers for them. It helped them to better manage their inventory. It even helps for better human resource management for their businesses. So we can see that there was the technology adoption for youth-led businesses was very key in ensuring that their businesses experience different levels of growth within the last 1 year. Also, we looked at skill acquisition for youth-led businesses. How well have they equipped themselves in terms of capacity building and training for themselves and also their personnel within the last 1 year? And when we measured that, we realized that, or we saw that 40% of youth entrepreneurs reported that they acquired training to better manage their business within the last 1 year. We also we all felt the effect of the Naira redesign policy, really. And we really wanted to understand, okay, how did it affect youth-led businesses? I know if by show of hands, I say, how many of us were affected by the Naira redesign policy? I'm sure all of us would raise our hands, definitely. Or maybe some might not, I don't know. But I was affected, really. And so when we asked around how the Naira redesign policy affected their business, 88% of youth-led businesses noted that they were negatively affected by the Naira redesign policy. And that's all we'll be able to share for now because we have to move on with the program. And to get more data, more insights, very, very great insights from the report. So to get more, read more about this because, you will get more context to some of the data I've shared here. You can download the report. You can even download the report from our agenda. We have the barcode there, so it takes you straight to our research page where you can just download the report, and it's there for you to download and even get more insights. And so next on the agenda, I will be inviting Mr. Mobolaji Ogunlende, Honorable Commissioner, Youth and Social Development, Lagos State, to come and give his keynote speech. Please let us continue applauding him as he climbs the stage. Thank you.
How you doing? Good. Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. Let me start by introducing myself and helping my brother pronouncing my surname. My name is Mobolaji Abubakri Ogulende. I am your Commissioner for Youth and Social Development in Lagos State. I like it when I say your, it connects, right? But I think it's also very important because we've always heard, or we often hear, that there's a disconnect between the government and the people. So what I'm trying to do, what the administration is trying to do is to bridge that gap, and I'm deliberate about it, especially coming from where I'm coming from, being in the private sector for over 13 years with Onwando before joining the government. Another story for another day, but I am here and I'm your commissioner, right? It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me. When I got the email and I saw the topic, it resonated with me, thank you. It resonated with me, and I said to myself that irrespective of my busy schedule, I will be here because this is a different segment. Yes, I am a politician, right? And normally when we start, in a gathering like this, we start by saying, build the youth. Okay, build the youth, build the nation. So definitely there are no politicians in here. Right, so it's a different segment, and it was deliberate that I thought it was interesting for me to attend as well. So good afternoon, everyone. My brother Nkrumah Mancho, welcome to Lagos, the center of excellence, state of aquatic splendor, and the financial hub of Africa. That is how my governor would normally say it, so I'm learning very quickly. So you're welcome. My brother that was speaking earlier on, when you were talking about your data and statistics, you said Kano, Zamfara. I didn't hear Lagos. So I was going to applaud you in my keynote, but I have to take it back because I didn't hear Lagos. But, I'm sure there's a mistake there somewhere. But you're welcome to Lagos, and I welcome everyone else that has come to Lagos. This is Lagos, and Lagos is everything, and we're glad to be here. You also said you saw government officials leaving LRRS. No, I'm here. The government is here. And in our themes, in the administration's Themes Plus agenda, it used to be themes, right? And this administration, we've added, 2 pluses. And the plus is gender equality, social inclusion, and youth empowerment and engagement, right? So we are here, we're listening. We can't do it all, but we're trying our best, and we're trying to do it differently, for sure. I would like to express my sincere appreciation for extending this invitation to me and giving me the opportunity to give a keynote address. It's an honor to have been considered for this significant role, and I'm delighted and that I accepted the invitation, and I am here. As we are all aware, entrepreneurship plays a pivotal role in driving economic growth, job creation, and innovation. It is particularly relevant in Lagos, in Nigeria, in the African context, where the youth population represents a significant demographic. Engaging and empowering young entrepreneurs is crucial for sustainable economic development and social progress. Whilst growing up, I've also been in the entrepreneurial space as well. I have done it. Who remembers when there was this device that you put on your mobile phones to stop you from getting cancer? Anybody remember that? I've done that. I've done, when you go to China, you pick up all sorts of gadgets, the entrepreneurial spirit. You need to have it to survive. And in Africa, to thrive, you need to have it. You just need to have it. They said the youths are lazy. No, we are not. It's just the terrain. It's just the limitations that we have. But, I was happy when my brother prior to me was also giving some statistics about the youth, the youth employing, the amount of employees is more significant than, some of the big companies, so I was thrilled. But you see, that is the spirit, it's a tough terrain, but we must continue to grab the bull by the horn and, and move forward irrespective of whatever it is that we face. And that is what I see here. That is what I've heard. And that is one of the reasons why I actually came, right? So this dialogue series provides an excellent platform to address the challenges and opportunities that the youth entrepreneurs encounter in Lagos, in Nigeria, in Africa. We must explore innovative approaches, identify key policy changes, and leverage the untapped potential of young, dynamic, and creative minds. The Faith Institute's, that is the Institute's 2021 report, I went through it very quickly, I won't lie, very quickly. It was very enlightening regarding the issues surrounding youth entrepreneurship. I make an important digression at this point to thank you for making the effort to document the statistics that represent the real issues, of the nation. Because gathering data is not an easy task. But organizations like yours provide people like me and everyone here real and relevant statistics that allow us to maximize, time in providing real and applicable solutions. Just like, again, I keep referring to my brother earlier on because he's the only one that I heard speaking. He mentioned that, 10,000 businesses, are youth-driven. That is remarkable, right? So let us going through your report. I picked three, statistics that have deeply resonated with me that represent hope and challenges. Number one was 67% of entrepreneurs between the ages of 18 and 35. The sheer fact that 67% of Nigeria's entrepreneurs fall within the vibrant age of a group of 18 to 35, it fills me, and I hope yourselves, with hope as well. The dynamic and youthful foundation has the potential to ignite lasting prosperity in our nation, right? Secondly, 43% of these entrepreneurs are business owners. So in our Things Plus agenda, that's the gender equality. I believe also in women empowerment. So I think the women should give themselves a round of applause. Because if 43% of the entrepreneurs are, female business owners, that says a lot, right? A heartfelt kudos to, to all you lovely women that are here, shattering, the glass ceilings, reshaping the narrative by putting in tremendous efforts as entrepreneurs. It's just not statistics, but it is a beacon of hope. Lastly, 49.8% of Nigerian businesses are SMEs. This statistics carries both hope and a sobering truth. Every SME plays a more significant role than we might realize. The hope lies in the numbers, the sheer numbers, and the potential growth. However, the pain is evident. Our SMEs face a tough business environment, which is what I said earlier on. It's not easy. No one said it was going to be easy. Rome was not built in a day. But we just have to face it and deal with it in as much as we can. During my tenure, I am determined to initiate programs that challenge these biases and firmly establish that our young women and men are indeed creators of immense value. Greater support and empowerment initiatives are on the horizon, working towards making this entire vision a reality. So shifting gears, empowering youth entrepreneurship with practical solutions. I have some key points that I have highlighted as my actual keynotes that I would like to share. Number one, accessible financial support. We can establish a dedicated fund, specially tailored for young entrepreneurs. This fund should have flexible terms, lower interest rates, just like you had mentioned, and reduce collateral requirements. By doing so, we bridge the gap between the potential and the financial backing, allowing more young entrepreneurs to access the capital they need to turn ideas into reality. But we must ensure that biases do not color our methods of releasing these funds, whether tribal or sexual, which are some of our strongest biases in Africa at large. We must not allow our stringent requirements to become so impossible that our target audience, which are the youths, simply chooses to falsify figures and data to draw funding. So it must be easy, it must be simple, it must be simplified. I do not currently handle a fund, but I can provide ideas as every year through my personal foundation. I have a foundation which is called the RAC Development Foundation. RAC is Real Act of Kindness. It's a foundation that I have been running over the last couple of years, just in my own little space, in my own little world, doing the little that I can do to make an impact in my community. You don't have to have ₦1 million to have an impact in your community. You start small. And believe it or not, when I started it from there, and I'm here standing today as your commissioner for youths. So every little helps, and you'll be surprised at what your little seed that you're sowing, could help. So through that and through my contacts, of course, we can look into, the financial support. Mentorship and training programs. We can create mentorship programs where successful entrepreneurs, I'm sure some of these things are already being done, but of course, if I'm standing before you as the commissioner and I'm re-echoing what you already know and we're all speaking the same language, on this page, it's a beacon of hope. And it shows that we're actually going somewhere. We're trying to do, things differently where, the government is listening, the government is understanding, the government is on your page. Then there's hope. And, and it's something, we should not take for granted. It's something we should latch on. I'm here. Latch on it. Right? So we create mentorship programs where successful entrepreneurs, both young and experienced, can guide and support the next generation. We can also develop practical training courses on entrepreneurship and business management. These programs should easily be accessible, possibly online, to accommodate those balancing entrepreneurship with other commitments. To live and thrive in Africa, you need to have, quote unquote, other commitments because nobody really lives on their salary, right? So we need to have those other commitments. So we need to make it easy for people, to be able to access this as they're on the go. Igbo kwenu. No one in this country or in the world does it better. There's a reason foreign universities are studying their patterns to solidify their structures surrounding business incubator systems. If the world is studying the Igbos, we are simply going to ignore their patterns, or we should be the first partakers in applying those principles to other businesses around. It's a food for thought. I suggest we employ the same. Again, pardon? Someone said yes. So. Again, there will be some experiences of failure, pain, betrayal, setbacks. So let's not go into this thinking life will become a bed of roses, because of my speech. No. We need to be realistic. We need to like I keep saying, we need to grab the bull by the horn. We need to be creative. We need to think about different ways of doing things. If we continue to do things the same way, you'll get the same results. So we must think outside the box, right? I have faced my own betrayals, but until we see progress of our country, and of course our dear Lagos, as the ultimate greater good, this defeat will continue to bring us to our knees. Thirdly, gender equality initiatives. Again, in the administration of Governor Babajide Olusola Sanwo-Olu, the plus is gender equality. We cannot but emphasize this. To tackle gender biases against female entrepreneurs, we should launch, campaigns celebrating and promoting women in businesses. I like what the WIMBIZ. How many of us are part of WIMBIZ here? Women in business. Okay, I like what they're doing. Promoting women in business. Additionally, we can establish female-focused entrepreneurship hubs that provide not only financial support, but also mentorship, network opportunities, and child care facilities. These initiatives would empower women to continue to break down the barriers and thrive as entrepreneurs. Number 4, strengthening the SME ecosystem. To fortify our SMEs, we should simply introduce policies that simplify business registration and reduce bureaucratic hurdles. This one is the problem of people like myself who are commissioners and all. Well, I promise to sit down with my fellow colleagues and iron out ways we can cooperate to make things work for yourself. If we as a government are ready to sit down and create that enabling environment for yourselves, then I believe we are moving forward. Number 5, digital transformation. Embracing digitalization is crucial. We cannot but overemphasize this. We can launch initiatives to provide young entrepreneurs with access to digital tools and platforms. Again, we can hammer this out, but once we have a working group of entrepreneurs who have the same drive, who have the same vision, who have the same mission, many of us would have garnered some clout with our networks, which should come together to provide subsidization opportunities for this business. And lastly, networking opportunities. Your network is your net worth. We cannot overemphasize that. We can organize regular entrepreneurship forums, including, the private and the governmental and the government sector. There are a lot of younger members of cabinet in this administration. There's a possibility and an ability to pull us all together in a room. It's our Lagos. It's our Nigeria. It's our Africa. Together, we would need to do it. United we stand, divided we fall. Gone are those days where, we leave it all to the government. I have crossed over into the government world, and I have seen and I've realized how easy it is to make things work and how difficult it is to not make things work. But the government cannot do it alone. We must come together, because when we come together and we thrive together, then we can build our community together. When we build our community together, we build our state together, and then we build, Nigeria together, we build Africa together, and then we build our nation together. So it's all about collaboration, togetherness, having the same drive, having the same vision. Again, gone are those days where, the government, people in the government are not on your page. Let me put it that way, for lack of better words. But now we're trying to do it better, right? Which is one of the reasons why I am here, just so that we can interact. I don't have any security protocol. I came in by myself, which is how we should be. We should be accessible. You need to be able to meet us. We are your representatives, right? And that is what it's all about. And if we are able to do that together, then believe you me, we would create a monster that we can control. In conclusion, by shifting gears and implementing these practical solutions that I have highlighted, we can empower youth and entrepreneurship in Lagos, in Nigeria, in Africa. It's not just about addressing challenges, but also seizing opportunities. Together, we can create an ecosystem where our young entrepreneurs can thrive, can innovate, and contribute significantly to our nation's growth. As we convene at this dialogue series for the rest of the day, let us harness our collective efforts to drive this transformative change and build a brighter future for Lagos, for Nigeria, and for Africa. Together, we all can make a real impact. Thank you very much.
It's time for us to have our panel session and interactive Q&A session. So, moderating this session will be Miss Olajumoke Adeola. I'm taking my time now. Founder, Unpolished Initiative. Please let us give her a round of applause as she comes to the stage.
Thank you. For a moment there, I thought you would be introducing the panelists, but that gives me the extra honor. So, introducing the amazing, distinguished individuals that we will be deconstructing this panel session with a round of applause, I invite Miss Esther Olalude. Please keep clapping till she comes off stage. Welcome with me on stage, Mr. Kennedy Ekezi. Also joining the panel session is Mr. Godwin Tom. And none but not least, Mr. Michael Ajayi. So it's very important that I properly introduce them. Miss Esther Olalude is the founder of Vinyl Pads, a sustainable sanitary towel for young women. Please, a round of applause. Mr. Kennedy Ekezi is the founder and CEO of Keeper Africa. Mr. Godwin Tom is the managing director of Sony Music Publishing. And Mr. Michael Ajayi is the country director of Enactors Nigeria. Fantastic panel. I'm very excited about these panels. I don't know if it was intentional, but we have 2 young entrepreneurs, individuals, and then we have 2 organizations that are engaging and supporting entrepreneurs. Please, a round of applause for Faith Foundation. So before we proceed into the panel session proper, on behalf of us young entrepreneurs, let's give ourselves a round of applause. We survived this year. We survived the Naira redesign. We survived the FX problems. We've survived the fuel scarcity. We've survived everything. Please give yourselves a round of applause. Sorry? 6. Okay, we are surviving this year. So we'll be engaging today's session in 3 phases. First, entrepreneurship in Nigeria as it is, entrepreneurship as it should be, and then bridging the gap between what we have and then where we need to be. Of course, we're going to take your closing remarks on particular policies, and I'm going to call that your final thoughts on the one change. So throughout the panel session, at the end of it rather, you're going to give us that one change that based on your experience will be most vital in reviving, sustaining, and growing the entrepreneurship landscape in Nigeria. So to start up, based on the Faith Foundation report I had read earlier, I read the last edition, and in this edition, we noticed that there are marginal growth in several sections, in several segments, and there are overall declines. First, we have the decline in the entrepreneurship index from last year, the steady decline in the number of MSMEs, decline in the number of new businesses being created. And of course, we have persistent problems like multiple taxation, inflation, subsidy removal. In fact, just the cost of living in Nigeria. So that question, the top of head question is entrepreneurship, or are we entrepreneurs an endangered species? because there is several decline. So based on your experience, I'm going to take your initial thoughts. Based on your own experience doing business in Nigeria, of course, sharing your story, what is it like in Nigeria, and are we endangered? Pretty much. I'll take Miss Esther first. I'm very excited to learn more about your business, and I'm sure we all are too.
I'd like to thank the Faith Institute and Zisha, the Faith Foundation, for this opportunity to be here. You asked if Nigerian entrepreneurs, youth entrepreneurs, are an endangered species. One thing I know about Nigerian youth is that we are resilient. No matter what comes our way, no matter what circumstances we face, we might go down, but we'll always come back up. We are not an endangered species. Personally, I am a student, and as a student, I see many youth saying they're not going to use their degrees, they want to graduate and go into business. From the way they say it, you know that they've never been into business before. But even at that, I have a couple of friends who are also into small businesses and all that, and sometimes we come together, discuss about challenges we are facing, but one thing we know, the conversation always ends with, we will rise again. And that's one thing I believe about Nigerian youth. We will rise again. The very fact that we're having this conversation on policies and shifting gears, it shows that not just we as the youth entrepreneurs, but there are also people above who believe in us, who believe in our vision for a better Nigeria. And this gives me hope and assurance that it is going to come, and it's coming very soon. Thank you. Okay, so my entrepreneurial journey. So Venil is an innovative startup. We develop, manufacture, and sell biodegradable sanitary pads. They're 30% cheaper than the regular sanitary pads. So our target population would be girls and women who are living in underserved communities, those who find it increasingly difficult, especially with the economic situation, to afford basic sanitary products. Because of this, they can't go to school, they can't go to work. The overall productivity of the community is affected and impacted. So my business, Venue, started as a mix of passion and the will to fill a gap in the society. Since I was little, I like the earth, I like the planet, all that. So through some volunteer work, I actually discovered that gap, that this issue, it's so big, so serious. Particularly, I come from just Nigeria, so I have seen it firsthand. I've seen the effect it has had on girls and women and the communities, families at large. So because of this, I got together with a team of my friends, got into doing some research. I read a lot. I wear glasses. I got into doing a lot of research, and it came up as an idea, just an idea. And then we saw a competition we could apply for, and we did that. When I applied for it, I didn't even think it was anything. I just thought, okay, let's just try our luck and see how things go. And that was how we got our first funding. But apart from the funding, thank you. Apart from the funding, winning that competition made me understand that people believe in what I was doing, that people believe that my innovative startup, my idea, is worth investing in. And that was what pushed me even more than the actual funding. So from there, we began our research into developing our actual minimal viable products. And through that, we were able to develop our business into something more worthy of applying for more fellowships, more grants. And that's how we were able to join the Anzisha Prize that brought me here today. And I can say that the journey so far has had its ups and downs. I came for the last session and heard about entrepreneurs talking about different policies, and I can relate personally. But it has been very rewarding seeing something that started as a seed grow and also help people. Thank you.
We'll take your initial thoughts.
I don't know if this thing works. Oh, it does? Okay. I also have a very loud voice, so It's really nice to be here. Thanks everyone for taking time out of your day to come listen to us. The question is whether or not I think young entrepreneurs are an endangered species. I don't think young entrepreneurs are more endangered than any other group of people. I mean, my parents are teachers, they're professors, and I don't think I would say young entrepreneurs are more endangered than, say, Nigerian academics, right? We're all equally endangered and very endangered, I must say. A lot of times when we gather publicly to talk about youth entrepreneurship, sometimes it's tokenistic. A lot of times it is like youth entrepreneurship, that thing. But we all know the data, right? So 70% of the Nigerian population is under the age of 30. So there's nothing like youth entrepreneurship. There's just entrepreneurship because we're young people in a place where 70% of people are below 30. It's not a segment that is tokenistically added to an agenda or that is brought in conversation. It is a matter of critical importance for how our civilization, how our economy evolves over the next 30 years. Quite frankly, it's not evident to me that not we in this room, we here believe that, but as a culture, as a fundamental financial system that allocates value and allocates resources, it's not evident to me that we deeply believe in youth entrepreneurship, in the concept. And I think it is a spillover of our broader culture as a people, where we don't take young people seriously, right? And we teach young people to not take themselves seriously. And if we don't solve for that, right, the foundational economic principles upon which all of the conversations we're having today are supposed to be built will never be built. Bill Gates said something, that thing which you do between the ages of 14 and 18, obsessively, that's what you're most likely to be successful at. And honestly, look at anyone who is successful. It's true. The most successful entrepreneurs across the world, between the ages of 14 and 18, they were doing something. They were, selling fake CDs or, just doing something and upping their IQ and across every endeavor where value accrues. But when you think about what most of us spend our time doing between 14 and 18, there's absolutely no correlation for future success. And you don't just randomly become a successful entrepreneur when you're older, when you're in your 40s or 50s, right? That part of you that's trained when you're young and primed, the fundamental principles of how to give value and extract resources as a result of the value you've offered. That's essentially what being an entrepreneur means. You don't learn that when you're 50. You really learn that when you're a young person. You learn that when you're a kid. You build upon that when you're in your 20s and 30s, and you start to make a lot of the money when you're in your 40s, 50s, and above. So I don't know if I'm answering the question for whether we're endangered or not, but I do think that there is a cultural shift that needs to happen. We need to take young people more seriously. We need to spend more time helping them, supporting them. As young people ourselves, we also need to take some more responsibility and get rid of the learned helplessness. A lot of people send me messages, reach out to me, stop me on the road to ask, how can I do this? And you can tell, I'm like, with this attitude, you would never do this, right? Because you are, one, you're very entitled. Two, you think there's someone up there who holds the key, and because they do not like you because you're young or because of where you come from, they've chosen to not give you access to the room. The room doesn't even exist most of the time. The people who are in the room are as confused as you, right? They don't know more than you do, honestly. So everyone is still trying to figure it out. There's no savior. And I think that's where I'll leave it at. But yeah.
Discovering that Sony Music just started in Nigeria about a year. Last year, August, I believe. So yeah, relatively new in the entrepreneurial space here in Nigeria. Your initial thoughts on this?
I was announced a year ago, but it was, the office existed. The bigger challenge I have with it's in how we think about these problems. So the first issue I have is where we are as a community is as a result of necessity, right? So at a point in time, it made sense to go into government, to work as a civil servant. Because as a civil servant, there was an enabling environment. There was either a loan or some sort of subsidized way you could get a house, you could get a car. So it made sense for young people to go into that system. When that was taken and there are no jobs, it makes sense for people to figure out how to eat. So where we are now is just the product of reality, right? When you have 70% of a country being young people, the creative endeavor is a product of young people. And when he said, you can't learn some things when you're 40, I pray not. But the point I'm making is, we are at a point where it's not a question of if we're endangered or not, because people are going to have to survive. It's a question of if we can provide the environment for people to survive before we start eating each other, right? So we have, for example, the notion and the idea that working in an office is a sin. That is so wrong. Because young people are getting to that point where they think the only way I can earn money is by working for myself, or, I'm a product of Ajegunle. I know I don't sound like it. And one of the things that I find when I go back to greet the people there to try and help, because I pay quite a number of school fees, but when I go back to sit with people and talk to them about challenges, what I hear is a lack of hope. So generally, when they see, and I'm careful which car I drive there, but when they see that car, the first thought, and this is a conversation I've had with a young man, I asked, what do you think it would take for you to own a car like this? And his response is, Baba, you go give me, or I go take them from you, right? And the reality is, he can't fathom, based on what he's earning, the thought of buying a 7-10 million naira car when I'm earning 20,000, where I have to feed my family, I have to take care of my siblings. So there are realities people are dealing with, and that reality is what has forced most people to become entrepreneurs. And so the question here is, how are we creating the environment that is suitable for proper business? Because the reason why the failure rate is high, because it's not everybody that is suited for entrepreneurship. It's just the reality. We are here as a necessity. When we're able to solve basic economic and policy issues, we will find that most people just want to have a job, wake up in the morning, go have their job, spend time with their family, and have a life on the weekends. It's only a mad person that wants to work 100 hours a week. I'm being honest. Only a mad person. So most of us here are mad. But we expect the same thing from everyone else. We expect everybody else to work 100 hours. So a person who can't do that is lazy or is useless or doesn't want to build a career for themselves. This is the thing that needs to change. In my opinion, we are not endangered. We're not an endangered youth. And I think he spoke very well about the realities. I think we're an endangered people, because what we're dealing with will swallow all of us. When people cannot feed, they're going to look at the next person who feeds better. And they're going to go after that person to get the little they can find. And it continues to go until it consumes all of us. So, didn't mean to start with a doom-centered message. But my point, because eventually we'll get to solutions. Hopefully I can prefer some. But the idea is, no, we're not endangered as young people, because in the next 30 years, it's going to even get worse. I mean, if we continue at the birth rates that we have now, right? It's going to get worse. There's going to be more young people. And there's going to be less to eat. And that's what I'm most afraid of. So we are an endangered people. And that's my view.
So we'll take you, Mr. Michael.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Adenike, and the rest of the team in Faith Foundation. And I see some familiar faces here, Wilson and the rest. It's an interesting conversation. And I mean, just following through on what you have just said, and now I'm scared of living into the future. I wanted to live till I'm 100 and 120, but now with the picture you've painted, I'm not sure I want to live till next week. Okay, so that said, are the youth entrepreneurs endangered? I mean, he brilliantly said it. We are all endangered, and I agree with that. However, since the focus of this conversation is around the young people, let's look at that statement. Youth entrepreneurs, are they endangered? If you look at that from the context of what can be, what should be, then we say, indeed, they are endangered. If you look at it, and this is interesting because he also mentioned the statistics of 70% of the Nigerian population being people within the age of 18 and 30. And the economy today is in a very sorry state. And we also know that entrepreneurship is a key driver of any economy in the world, especially the MSMEs. That's a tongue twister for me, right? So if you look at that figure, 70% of 200 million people, and I'm sure we are over 200 million people now. If we have mathematicians in the room, please help me. 50% will be 100 million, is that correct? So 70% will be about 120 million people. That's the population of young people. In fact, that's the size of maybe 5 African countries together, apart from Nigeria, of course, right? Imagine if we intentionally support this demography to succeed as entrepreneurs. Now, it is an intentional thing, a roadmap that says in the next 10 years, we want to transform 50% of this population into successful businesses, business owners that can each create job opportunities that employs, say, 10 people. The economy will be transformed by the day as these entrepreneurs begin to evolve and succeed. I'm not sure if this thing is working anymore, right? So the economy will transform. And to that extent, I insist that as long as we're talking about youth entrepreneurship and we compare what can be versus what we have, or what should be versus what we have to say that they're endangered. The environment is tough. And I'm sure, I applaud pragmatism and optimism. But the truth is, having worked with young entrepreneurs across the country, I know, and I'm sure even the very successful ones here know that it is tough. Now, that does not mean that there aren't success stories as we have seen here. But what I know is that the ones that succeed do so in spite, not because of the government. They succeed in spite of and they will tell you if they share their stories, right? They succeed in spite of. So imagine again, if there are systems and structures in place to ensure that they succeed. What then becomes of the larger demography of youth entrepreneurs? So my take is a lot can happen to transform the space if we're indeed thinking about transforming the Nigerian economy, not only for today, but for tomorrow. And that can have a massive impact on the African continent as a whole. Already, look at the music industry, the entertainment industry as a whole. Again, that is an industry that has succeeded not because of government, but because of the individuals who see an opportunity and they took the opportunity to build something, right? Now that industry is being celebrated all over the world. There was a time if you went to a Nigerian party, you would listen to American music. Today, if you go to a Nigerian party and they play an American music, everybody will sit down, right? Again, because certain individuals in that space invested their time and resources and their passion to build it. And that is what is happening even in the larger entrepreneurship system. And we will talk more about this later on. But I believe that certain things have to be done to support entrepreneurs to begin to flourish and grow. And that can become the solution to the economic challenges that we face and even security challenges that we face in Nigeria today. Thank you.
Fantastic summation. I'm very excited that you ended on the note that certain things need to be done. I know Enactors is a global organization. You're in several countries, just like JCI. I'm a member of JCI Nigeria. And I know that these organizations are put together a lot, aside from their international reach, which I would like you to share on what are they doing right, what can we learn from, and what are they doing right, what can we learn from, and then I'll take the next question from there.
So generally speaking, what Enactors does is to identify young people. Again, I'm sorry, but I have to say young people, right? In tertiary institutions, And the whole idea is find them, help them find themselves, right? First, you find them, and then help them find themselves. And what that simply means is identify young people, challenge them to be part of the solutions to the problems in their communities. This problem can be environmental problems, social problems, or economic problems. The whole idea is find a problem, find an innovative solution that can address that problem while creating economic value, for the people in that community, for yourself as well. So this is essentially what we do around the world. And by doing this globally, what we have seen is the Enactor students who then become alumni build capacity beyond measure in terms of enterprise development, in personal leadership, and even in project management. They build that capacity. And some of the things they learn to build this capacity center around teamwork, resilience, being accountable, understanding the value of integrity, and the likes. And they are able to apply this whole thing, this knowledge and skills, whether in their personal businesses or at the places of work if they choose to seek for a job. And we have seen quite a number of them across the country, not just in Nigeria, but around the world, that have applied these skills to build enterprises that are succeeding and doing very well. I'm tempted to give an example. One of our alumni started a business here in Nigeria just after graduation. I think he was still in his NYSC. He was still doing his service when the business, took a life of its own. And based on the knowledge and skills he had acquired, he became attractive to Y Combinator. He's here in Nigeria, but he was attracted to Y Combinator in the US, which is perhaps the biggest and most influential incubator around the world. And at the end of his time with them, they they provided a grant for him of about $2.8 million. This is a few years ago. And today, because of the grants received and the support he has received through that Y Combinator, he leads a business that is serving not only the Nigerian market, but a few other countries in Africa. And his goal is to take over the entire Africa in that space. All right. So this is a kind of impact the Enactors program is making as it enables young people to find themselves, whether as entrepreneurs, corporate citizens, or whatever they decide to do with themselves, but find themselves, have the right skills and knowledge and all of that to be able to succeed and flourish as entrepreneurs.
Thank you very much. So to piggyback on your response, I know from a lot of organizations such as Enactus, JCI, because I've served as the chairperson of the Creative Young Entrepreneurs Program in JCI. There are a lot of structures we've put in place for young people, for their development entrepreneurially. But there seems to be that gap, that's kink in the line that we've not been able to get right. From your experience working with these young people, what do you perceive it might be? And then we'll piggyback to Kennedy. We'll talk about the challenges of entrepreneurship and how they can build the resilience, focusing on funding, because it's something that even the Faith Institute have highlighted as a major setback for entrepreneurs. I'm aware that the amount of funding that tech startups in Nigeria are receiving has been decreasing over the years. So how do they build resilience in that regard? So I'll take you and then...
Okay.
I'll take him first.
So the question is centered around opportunities for capacity development, correct?
Yes, the question is about capacity building. Is capacity building a problem? Are we doing it right? Is Faith Foundation doing it right?
So I agree with you. There are quite a number of training opportunities, because for entrepreneurs to succeed, in my world, there are two things you need, right? You need access to financing, which is not the most important thing for me. What is more important than access to funding is business development skills, business development and business management skills. Now, one of the problems oftentimes is people throw money at the situation, and at the end of the day, if the person doesn't have capacity to handle that amount of resources, then very soon it will go to waste, right? So business development opportunities, which comes back to the question of capacity development and all of that, there are quite a number of opportunities for trainings, and like you rightly noted, Faith Foundation is already doing that. And Enactus is doing that in tertiary institutions. The question now is, why are young people still saying, especially those starting off entrepreneurship, saying that there aren't so many opportunities for capacity development? I think that now we can flog the government and the private sector for not doing what they have to do, the way they should do it, and when they must do it, right? But we have to hold the young people, especially the entrepreneurs, accountable as well. He said it. You have to be responsible. If there are opportunities for training, you need to seek them out. You need to literally find them. The young man I spoke about, his name is Lanre. He lives in Nigeria, but he attracted funding from the United States. Okay, he doesn't live in Nigeria anymore now. Because now he lives in the United States, right? But that's what I'm talking about. He sought for that opportunity and found it. For me, people should become like a foam, right? Foam, and soak up every information available. Now, where you are unable to find those opportunities that are free or subsidized, if you want to succeed, you must invest in yourself. There are no two ways about it. Most people go to school and succeed, right? It's either you succeed as a career person or you succeed as an entrepreneur, but the chances of success in life is much higher if you went to school compared to if you did not go to school. And it's simple. There's an investment that has been made. So entrepreneurs, whether young or old, must take out time to invest in themselves. And I know that there's a question of, well, how do I fund that and all of that? That is why you must seek opportunities that exist, right? Because again, you must take ownership. You must build yourself, understand. in business, it is said that sometimes the knowledge and information that you have and the skills that you have that brought you from 0 to 50 is not what you need to take you from 60 or 50 to 100. You need a new set of knowledge, a new set of managerial skills, and a new set of information. So it is I think that the answer to that question is that A, people are not seeking out these opportunities because they do exist, and B, when they are unable to find those opportunities, they are not willing to invest in themselves. We have done a program once. It was a masterclass. It was designed to be a masterclass to empower young people who are fresh graduates now to understand what the job market is seeking, right? So that they can be prepared in terms of job interviews, applications, and all of that. And there was a token just to make sure that people are serious about it and they are able to commit to it. A token, this was maybe like 7 years ago, and the token was, guess how much? 3,000 naira. And only 5 people registered for it in about a month. Why? Because there's that entitlement mentality that why should I pay for it? So opportunities exist. People must be willing to seek them out, and where they are not available, they must be willing to make that investment in themselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So Kennedy will take your response now. But whilst doing that, we'd also like to learn about your story, your entrepreneurial story in Nigeria.
Yeah. So I guess it's 2 different questions now. The first is on funding. So what I would say is, and picking back off that question, or what's missing today, I think that there's a lot of training programs out there for entrepreneurs, but to be honest with you, and the best entrepreneurs don't need training. Personally, I honestly find it, to the extent that these entrepreneurial programs are successful, they are successful at identifying and incubating. But there is very little you can do to improve someone who is not going to be successful at being an entrepreneur. I think at best you can support those who already have what it takes at its core, and help them fill in the gaps that they probably do not have. And I think that's what the best companies like Y Combinator, the best incubators like Y Combinator know very well, and that's why they're really successful. So on funding, there is the asset class, which is venture capital, that is very prevalent, that we all know, we all read on TechCrunch, we all envy people who raise funding for. My observation is, and if you trace its history and how it originated, it pursues people who tend to be more innovators than entrepreneurs. And it may be hypocritical for me to say this for very obvious reasons, but I think we probably need more brick and mortar type entrepreneurs to build infrastructure that we need, versus innovators who would now build on top of that to make them more efficient. And that's why personally I do think, again, very hypocritical, so you can say that to me, that there is a mismatch of our sources of capital, why that capital is coming in the door in the first place, and the problems that they set out to solve. And we need to marry that. And that's a dilemma that a lot of entrepreneurs face, because the story, the mandate for which you're giving capital by people who lack context and understanding, and who mostly think about your country and continent as an opportunity for them to make money. They missed India, they missed China, they don't want to miss Africa. That's the thesis, right? And that is not the mindset we'll build things in this part of the world with. So we need better brick and mortar type businesses. And it's harder. It's much harder to build businesses like that today with the economic conditions that we have. And when you think about the successful businesses that the generation of our parents and those who came before them built in the 60s, 70s, 80s across the entire West African sub-region, they didn't necessarily have to go through training for that, right? For the best entrepreneurs, and anyone who knows entrepreneurs knows this, they work 6 days a week, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. They take 2 weeks in a year of holiday. No one out here outworks them. There's no more education than that, like putting in the hours, understanding your fundamentals, And most of them are semi-literate at best, but they run their businesses very efficiently, at least at the scale, where it's at. So that's what I think about funding. With accessing funding, look, like I said, so first thing is we need to figure out what sort of businesses we need to build to bootstrap our economy from where it's at now. Because for each and every one of us, right, we are poorer than we should be. Whether we like it or not, whether we sit in fancy places, we have fancy titles, we are poorer than we should be. All of us, right? With the skills, with the knowledge that each and every one of us has, if we're selling that on a global market, we'll be a lot wealthier. And when you think about it, we're talking about the music industry, and my good brother here knows about this way more than I do. It's not that Afrobeats just got better. It's just that we have more capital and more global attention now chasing that asset class. That's why people who are there are making more money. So how about we think about, we bootstrap our own belief systems. What do we believe in? What are we willing to allocate capital behind as a society? And then we start to do that. And the people who are there return this capital very quickly. And then we start to spread that across the board, across different industries, not just specific industries like technology. Last thing I would say on my entrepreneurial story, and it ties back to everything we've talked about, is the people who we need, the best entrepreneurs, need some sort of incentive. The same way, in the generation of our parents and grandparents, you go become a doctor because you're treated really nicely. You get a nice car, you get a nice pay, you get treated very well. For the sort of people who go on to be entrepreneurs, they need living, breathing models of who those people look like. For me, with deciding to be an entrepreneur, so when I moved back to Nigeria from Beijing, where I lived for 2 years at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020, the decision-making mechanism for me was, who are the smartest young people I know today, and what are they doing, right? The smartest people I respected, I knew who were, plus or minus 5 years my age. They were trying to build companies. They were putting all of their reputation behind it, right? Some of my best friends studied in Ivy League colleges in the US, moved back to Nigeria, moved to a village to figure out how to build a startup. Those were the people I was looking at. And we need more people like this, and we need to tell more stories like this, because the smartest, the best people, the geniuses, we don't even know who our geniuses are. Who are our geniuses? If I ask us that question, we point to the wealthiest people we know and we start to pick from. But that's not how we assess who geniuses are. We need a way to figure them out. And the only way we can figure them out is by showing them examples of people who they like and respect, who are like them, and we help those other people grow. So for us to figure them out, they need those examples. We need to figure out a way to find them and to give them everything that they need so they'll produce what we all need. So we can all enjoy and work 8 hours a day while we leave the geniuses to work 150 hours every week, if that's up to that, because they are crazy people. So that's what I think. Yeah.
Thank you very much. A round of applause, please. So in the next 3 minutes, we'll be taking questions from the audience. Please get your questions ready. So whilst we wait for the questions, I'll take a question. I'd like to ask, you mentioned in your earlier submission, Esther, that you could make sanitary towels sustainable, but 30% cheaper. What is that like, doing that kind of business in Nigeria? And how do we build structures and systems that is sustainable for organizations? Of course, from your experience, what I mean is incorporating sustainability measures.
So, Venil started with sustainability in mind. It did not start and then we decided that we had to incorporate sustainability. So that has been quite challenging, if I'm being honest, letting people understand the need for sustainability. A lot of Nigerians have a survival mindset. They don't care what they are doing to the environment. They don't care what they are doing to their own selves, as long as they get to put food on the table, as long as they get to have clothes on their back. And for businesses that are already running and want to incorporate sustainability, they have to educate themselves. They have to understand the need for sustainability, first of all. So I guess that's one of the gears that we need to shift in Nigeria. We need to understand the need for certain things. Like everyone else has said, Nigerians have an entitled mindset. They want people to always do things for them. Rather than not littering, they want the government to come and pack all the litter they've made. Rather than doing things sustainably, they want people to solve the problems that they have already caused. So the first thing, like I said, is to understand the need for sustainability. And then for businesses that are already working, entrepreneurship ventures are already in the works, assess what you're doing. Assess and reassess and keep on assessing. Even at Venue, we always check where can we be more efficient, where can we be more sustainable, and then implement it in those areas.
All right, thank you. A question that comes to mind immediately when I, of course, still on sustainability is your approach. Has that affected your bottom line? And I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs are also wondering, if I want to do this, would I have to purchase things at more expensive rates? Or would that, so from your experience pretty much, has that affected your bottom line? Or it's still looking good?
Well, to start up something that is relatively novel in Nigeria, we had to do a lot of research, like I said at first, and that involved actually getting machinery that we could not find here. So, of course, the beginning of it was definitely more expensive. It was harder. We had to do a lot of budgeting, bootstrap ourselves by adding more funds from our own personal funds and finances and all that. But then in the long run, when we think about the impact that we're making, the sustainability that we're driving, I would say that it's much better this way.
Thank you very much, Esther. Do we have questions from the audience? Okay, we have a question here. Do we have a roving mic? While we wait for the mic, so I would ask Mr. Godwin just one more question before we move in. So that despite all the challenges that we've spoken about and those that we've not even spoken about, how do you recommend that we mitigate the risk associated with starting and running businesses in Nigeria, coming from the corporate perspective and then trickling down to the individual actions?
Sorry, could you take that again?
So, despite all the challenges that we've discussed on the panel, and I'm sure that we've noticed in Nigeria, in the entrepreneurship ecosystem in Nigeria, what are the measures we can use to mitigate these risks that are associated with starting and running businesses as entrepreneurs in Nigeria, coming from the corporate perspective and then trickling down to the individual actions?
Oh, it's quite worded.
Okay, we
Don't worry,
have challenges.
I get you. The reason why I say worded is because my brain was processing the answer and more questions were coming. But my thoughts are, and I'm going to try my best not to be, a problem here. We need to allow people fail. We need to build a system that allows for iteration. Because when people are afraid of failing, we don't get the innovation that we need. So generally, when people are funding small businesses, one, investors want their returns in a year. That is how you have people doctoring documents, right? I had a conversation with, there's an organization that funds, invests in infrastructure, in businesses across Africa. And when I asked them what their biggest challenges were, I was told that many people that come with proposals for factories usually write a 5-year plan as opposed to a 30-year plan. Now, if you're setting up a factory, it means that you need to, first of all, recoup your money, and then you need to ensure that the factory is managed. you can't get that money back, especially with the level of investment needed in 10 years. You're going to need to be stabilized in 10 years and then begin to generate money. Many people are not thinking that far. And part of the reason is we've created a culture where return has to come back immediately. So that in itself trickles down to the problem that people are now afraid to fail, because if I don't get it right the first time, I will not get funding. Right? I'll give you another example. The matrix that are used to determine who gets funding needs to change. I was with an organization recently. I'll tell you why I'm with all these organizations, because it sounds like I'm just meeting all these organizations and I'm not providing any solutions. Right? One of the reasons why is I started an academy in 2017. Well, an idea of an academy that became an academy in 2020. And initially I was looking for staff to hire. And I realized that a lot of the people in the entertainment industry are not educated. So it's generally the artist's brother comes into the situation and now works with the artist. So everybody is stabbing in the dark. So I tried to hire people. When I hired people, and I faced another struggle. The struggle was many people were used to doing things a certain way. And I was coming to do it because I came from corporate. So I was having difficulties. Then I pushed on from that, and then I went into realizing that, okay, these people that I've now trained that work for me have to now deal with the industry, right? And they were struggling now. And so I decided I was going to set up an academy. So we have an academy. We've trained over 900 people in the music business. The first program we did, we trained people and we tried to place them. Feedback we got was they don't have experience. So we decided to introduce something called the Talent Project. So after we train you, we have to allow you work. So we find artists, and then we give you work. So I go and find funding, sometimes from my pocket, and I fund albums. I fund events that the students would do. And I keep telling them, you are allowed to fail. Give yourself the best shot at success. And if you fail, it's not your money, right? So the idea behind this, and everybody will say, well, not everybody has your money. I don't have that much. But the reality is, these people feel more confident when they've seen a thing and done it before. And now when they go into the real world, someone says, this person knows what he's doing. Yes, because he failed. And so I think that's another issue. And I think the third thing I would like to say about that is, I was actually talking about the reason why I was mentioning these people. So the second people I met, and I told them we need funding, and they said they were going to give me a lot of money, like it was a lot of money. And I said, that's fine, but they said, you have to train 1 million people. And I said, that's not feasible, right? That's absolutely not feasible. So I realized that a lot of the organizations coming in here, and this is very important, coming in here are not trying to solve our problem. They're trying to meet KPIs. And the moment that becomes the focus, we will continue to sell our people to wolves. Let me explain this. If I train 1 million people, and I only have 20,000 jobs, what you're going to tell me at the end of the day is my project has failed. Because part of the matrix is I'm able to connect the people I train to jobs. So there are no jobs. Then I come back to you and I say, how about we fund out of let's say I give access to information to 1 million people, because that's the best I can do. Radio, etc. I can give information to 1 million people. Out of 1 million people, 200,000 show interest in the thing that I'm giving them information about. Out of these 200,000 people, I now train 100,000. Out of the 100,000, we now have 50, let's say 10,000 who are business-minded that we can develop. So we then provide incubator programs for those guys. And then out of those 10,000, maybe there are 200 successful businesses that we're able to now invest in. this thought process needs to be the way we solve problems. There has to be a combination of grants and investment. You cannot focus on just educating people, because what happens is by the time I finish going to 5 training programs and there's nothing coming out for me, I'm not going to attend anyone anymore. So in terms of how we're going about it, now at Sony Music Publishing, when I became MD, part of the reason I took this job was because I was told that I could reinvest money in here. And I was also told that I will be able to keep money here. So I wouldn't have taken the job if they said, oh, you're coming here to put a suction pipe and suck back to the UK or the US. What I've agreed with the company, and which I'm glad for the kind of bosses I have, is we will develop revenue opportunities here and we'll support local businesses here. So I'll give you an example. I got a call from Sweden. And I'm telling you this story because I want you to understand how all of these things connect. A call from Sweden, and they said, one of our artists is doing very well. Let's sign him. I listened to the music. I don't want to mention any of the names. I listened to the music and I said, we cannot sign this person. And they said, why? And I said, because the song he's singing belongs to Salawa Abeni. Right? And if I sign him, I'm causing Salawa Abeni and her family and her estate not to make money. That is the value of putting people within the system. People who understand how it works. What we need to do is educate more people so that they can stand at the door and say, oh, these international organizations coming in, here are the questions that we have for you. And this is how you should operate here to benefit our people.
So we'll take questions now. We have a question.
Thank you so much.
Please,
I've been here.
Pardon me, let's keep our questions concise because of time. Thank you.
Okay. I've been here since morning, since 7, and I've enjoyed every bit of the sessions. And I'm glad I waited. I wanted to leave. I'll say, Mr. Inoctox, you didn't find me earlier. I think I've passed that, stage now. I believe that entrepreneurship is a continuous learning process. Sorry, Mr. Akeze. Yeah, right. It's a continuous learning process. There's been conversations around youths are entitled, and all that. But it's very important that we also know that there are a set of entrepreneurs, youth entrepreneurs, that fall within the nano group, right? And the way the business landscape is now, people tend to embrace complexity. Complexity in the sense that they have the capital to put up, for example, in the tech space. They can always, pay some developers to help them with their platforms, with the tech product. I was privileged to be a judge during a pitch session last Saturday. And these guys had fantastic ideas. Fantastic. Now, we had about 10 of them. And they all came to pitch for 3 million naira sum. What are they trying to do? Just to have a tech-enabled platform. What am I trying to say and what am I trying to ask? Why is digitization very expensive? Who is solving the problem of digitization? Digitization is very expensive in Nigeria. And I know that you cannot agree with me. Before you pay your digital manager or before you do your SEO, before you have this, before the maintenance, and then when you think of the nano entrepreneurs, how much are they making? Right? So I think that there has to be a solution around that. I understand that access to funding can solve the problem. However, that can also be another solution. People like an actors, Sony, Keeper, you were able to build, you were in Beijing, and you came back. When you mentioned some of, your friends, Ivy League, and trust me, there are people who went to you. There are people who went to Yabatek.
I went to Unical.
It doesn't matter. You came back with some capital, right? And then there's some people who went to, that cannot even afford to pay that developer or even the website guy who would help them put up. And I mentioned complexity because the world loves complexity now. Once they say the business, They have this really lovely, oh yes, they are doing, and they're not really doing anything. It's just the complexity. And then there are people who really want to solve a problem, but they do not have the capital to actually build a proper digital system. What can enactors, what can be done? Thank you.
All of us.
All of you.
I'm sorry.
Do we have any other questions in the room?
Are we able to respond to that?
What? So it depends on how many questions we have, how many people. Okay, then yes, we can.
Okay, so here's the first thing I must say. Minimum viable product. A lot of the time, everybody wants funding for an idea. Your idea is great, but if it doesn't make money, you can't just ask people to give you money, right? Especially because some of the money people will give you are hard-earned cash that they've made. So the first thing I would say is, when you're building something, what you start with is what is within your reach, right? Build with that, and then as you grow, you will find new opportunities. There are people who build their platforms on Excel, and as they develop, they're able to now incorporate certain platforms that are automated. The reason why they're expensive is because it takes time and intellectual property to develop, and so people put a fee on that. So I think the question here is there a minimum viable product that's generating income that the investor can see cash flow and then say, based on how well this business is doing, considering the investment, the little investment, if I give you $100,000, you could do 10x, 20x, 100x. My point is minimum viable product first, and then you can go to an investor and you will get what you want.
Another thing I would say on this is the absence of digitalization is not a problem. The fact that there's no platform that can do something in and of itself is not a problem. At the point where you need technology to enable and make a process more efficient, you've proven that that process works. That process is profitable, and technology helps make it even more profitable. I met the founder of Chobani. I don't know if any of us know it, the yogurt brand, in LA in 2019. One of the things he told me was, when the company was at $600 million in annual sales, they still ran on QuickBooks, Excel, manually. There was no fancy technology on the back end. Only him had access to their back end, their books. I think that's a fantastic example of what it means for you don't need anything fancy. And the deification, we've made a deity out of technology. It's nonsense, right? For the most part, like I said, and my position is a lot of the infrastructure that we need to build come before we use technology to then make them faster, to then make them more efficient. And that's what we need to be paying attention to. But it's harder now because for a lot of people, our first interaction with technology is on TechCrunch. You see this person raised 10 million, right? You see Kennedy on TechCrunch, or you see, and that's why I say it's a little bit hypocritical, but we need a reorientation, and it's part of what I want to really push, that we reorientate people and we talk openly about, even for us as founders, what are some of the mistakes we've made that we would not make again. And I'll tell you this very openly. There are some people who you shouldn't even work with, who you shouldn't take money from, no matter how desperate you are. And you only learn this after you've done that. That's it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Michael.
You've addressed it very sufficiently. There's really no need to add to that. Really, let's leave it at that. Yeah, but if I must, really, I'll just say that, because you look at me like, please say something. So I will just add that, you see what they said, creating that minimum viable product first. And then he shared about using basic tools to get started until the business gets to a certain level. And now what that does is you have demonstrated that this is a profitable business. If we now integrate technology into it, it can be even more profitable, enough to provide funds for you, the investor. Then they come in. But you don't get this by just bootstrapping. You also understand this better if you had some measure of training in business development, because these are basically some of the elementary things that will be discussed in the early stages of those classes to tell you about producing minimum viable product, keeping your records and all of that. Okay, so this comes back to the issue of training. so that they are able to be empowered with information and knowledge to know that they need to produce minimum viable. And you do not need to start big. You can start with the basic tools and get to the end goal at the end of the day.
Thank you very much, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a fantastic session. A very big thank you to our panelists.